This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of the DocNJock Wrestling Podcast. This is episode 192. We are back after a week off. I'm your host, Adam the Jock Strozinski. I'm going to be bringing in the Doc here in a few moments, but just to give you a little peek on what we've got in store for this show. We've got some reports on CM Punk and what's going on with him and how he looks in the ring. We've got some updates on Adam Cole and possibly some contract news. And WWE is just letting everybody go, and nobody really knows what that means, but it might mean that there are some high-ranking officials in NXT that may be getting pushed out. We're going to discuss all of this on today's episode. And like I said, doing it with me as always, he's the one. He's the only. He's the busiest guy I know. Just grinds all day, all night. Covered the Detroit Lions on Friday night at Ford Field, only to go back home after writing until 1 a.m. to turn on a recorded episode of AEW Rampage and turn on a recorded episode of WWE Smackdown to stay up till 4 a.m. to then get up just before 9 o'clock with me and record this episode for you. He's the one. He's the only. He is the Doc, John Macaroon. I think I covered it all. Did I get everything for you?
Absolutely, baby. I feel good. I am back, baby. The preseason definitely wears on you, and with timing and everything like that. 8 a.m. practices for football is crazy, but it teaches you to get up early, teaches you to be disciplined, and here we are, baby, talking wrestling. I'm excited because a lot of shit happened as I was coming home. You guys are like, wow, there's some news going on at Impact. I'm like, what happened? And you guys will fill me in because when you guys said the name of who won the title, I'm like, wait a minute, I thought it was for a different title. So I got to get back in the loop and get back into wrestling because so much good stuff happens.
Yeah, there was a ton that kind of happened this week, more specifically between Impact and AEW, and it all kind of took place on AEW's new show, Rampage. And we've got a little bit of insight as to why it took place and how it's setting up for a future match. We're going to discuss that. I'm not sure how you felt about this week in wrestling, but for me, it really felt like this week was, let's kind of build and push towards upcoming shows. I felt like this week was pretty blah, especially with most of the WWE product. I felt like AEW was building towards their new show, and they really kind of put everything back burner for their new show, Rampage, that takes place on Friday nights. I do want to start with Monday Night Raw, though. And like I said, I felt like it was pretty blah. I felt like this was another miss for Monday Night Raw. I didn't think it was a good show overall. They had a chance to kind of do some different things. They brought Randy Orton in. I thought Randy Orton and Matt Riddle were probably the best part of Monday Night Raw. More specifically, Matt Riddle. I just find him to be so humorous, and I find him to be so funny. And just the way he delivers different lines and the way he interacts with Randy Orton, where you've got this really serious straight guy and you've got this broy broster with Matt Riddle. And it's just, their interaction is hilarious to me. But overall, I thought Raw really missed the mark again. What did you think?
Yeah, I just think that sometimes with WWE, it's like we have these transitional shows that kind of are meant to kind of get the feuds and the angles a little bit ahead. But those are the shows I think you and I like the least. You know, there's not enough action, not enough intrigue, and I just think that I'm in the same boat as you. I came away disappointed.
See, like, I think both of us are really open to long-term storytelling. Like, you were getting that in AEW with the Hangman Page storyline. You get that with the whole thing with Chris Jericho and MJF. Like, Alyssa hasn't watched AEW in quite some time. She was surprised that Chris Jericho and MJF are still feuding. She's like, what the hell's going on here? I figured this would be done by now. And that's more that WWE programming where it's in and out. Everything is quick. I was like, no, this is long-term storytelling. They're telling a long story here. She's like, but wasn't he just thrown off a cage months ago? And I was like, yeah, but like there's more to it here. And I think we're both really open to long-term storytelling and building out these feuds, but you got to do it, I think, in a better way, and you got to deliver it a little bit better. And usually NXT is the brand that we can go to, we can count on for this stuff. And again, NXT for me felt like it was just more of a setup show. There was nothing really to note. It felt like it was just a transitional show coming up for their upcoming pay-per-view on Sunday, which, by the way, is that weird to you that NXT is going to be on Sunday and SummerSlam is going to be on Saturday this year?
Oh, are you sure? Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. I was checking the schedule because I was going to extend you an invite if you wanted to come over and watch it on the screen outside.
What's the date? What's the date of SummerSlam now officially?
The 21st, so it's going to be next Saturday.
Oh my God, I'm not even ready for that. I got something going on. Guess what's going on? Lions preseason game 2. It jacks up everything. Football jacks up everything. And now I gotta, I'll have both TVs on, man. I'll watch the Lions and SummerSlam. That's a big mistake in my mind, to have that. And you just revealed that to me. I hadn't checked the dates officially. I just find that to be ultra disappointing. It's Saturday
weird,
night.
Right?
Pay-per-view big nights are supposed to be Sunday. Period. You can't have that. NXT should never be on a Sunday. It's just, now I'm disappointed. As disappointed as I was to see AJ Styles lose, I just wanted to get your sense of that match because I was entertained by it, but I just felt like, man, seeing AJ Styles lose was not the way to go. You could have probably did that maybe with Jinder Mahal. Did really Randy Orton have to pin and go over on AJ Styles?
I think you're building towards something here, right? And you know how we talked about, I think it was 2 weeks ago maybe, we talked about infusing Randy Orton and Matt Riddle into this tag team division to kind of heighten it a little bit. If you look at the Raw tag team division, there's not really anything there. And like, as far as AJ Styles and Omos go, I don't know, is that an intriguing tag team that you're kind of like, oh, I'm really interested in this? I think what you do is you take a superstar like AJ Styles and you take a superstar like Randy Orton and you let them kind of develop this little bit of a blood feud. And obviously Omos is going to get involved like he did. And Matt Riddle is going to come to the aid of Randy Orton like he did. And what you do is now this helps set up a forced partnership between Randy Orton and Matt Riddle against AJ Styles and Omos. And I think you help start to kind of build up your tag division with these two guys who, like I said before, I feel like they're the most entertaining two guys on Monday Night Raw right now. I feel like they're the best guys. And look, Randy Orton's only been back for one show. Randy Orton has been sidelined for whatever reason. Nobody's really sure why he was taken off TV. But he comes back and instantly he's the cat's pajamas on that show. And I just think that's because we've had such poor booking. AJ Styles is another guy who's kind of been a little bit MIA. It's been a little bit less sporadic than Randy Orton. But still, it's one of those things where I don't really know how you book him when he's in this tag team in a tag division that doesn't really have any juice.
And so here's the thing that's weird to me is that AJ Styles and Randy Orton already had a feud that culminated in WrestleMania. So that's why I don't like revisiting feuds like that. I think a feud that ends at WrestleMania should not be revisited because it kind of takes the luster off of a match that really was really good. I think if you refresh my memory, AJ Styles won that match. So I don't know. I just felt like for me.
But what do you think about it being? What do you think about them being put in this tag team to kind of heighten and help set up a guy like Matt Riddle and set up a guy like Omos? Like, I don't know what Omos's future is. I have no idea where they're going to put him, how they're going to push him, or what they're going to do with him.
Absolutely. You're spot on in your assessment. I just wish that the light would stay shined on AJ Styles. He's kind of now in the mix of the rest of the card where
I would say, doesn't it feel like he's kind of fell back a little bit?
Yeah, exactly. And that's where I feel like you don't do Cena that way. You don't do The Rock that way. I feel like just having AJ Styles should be like, okay, this is a big time deal, and to have him just kind of ho-hum lose to Randy Orton to kind of kick this off. In the grand scheme of things, in the new WWE, it's par for the course. It's just not something I'm personally fond of, and I think that's where part of my dislike of the show also culminated.
Mm-hmm. And I totally get that. And I'm glad you brought up John Cena because we're going to get to that here shortly. John Cena and Roman Reigns had an epic promo where they just kind of went in on each other, and I had a little bit of an issue with it. So I'll highlight that right now. But I do want to jump back to NXT. I want to talk to you about some news that I found out earlier this morning. And it sounds like with all the changes going on in NXT, we just had a rash of cuts that we're going to discuss in the news and notes segment. It doesn't sound like Triple H or Shawn Michaels, who are the two head guys who basically run NXT. And all the programming that you've loved from NXT has basically been because of Triple H and from Shawn Michaels. It doesn't sound like they were consulted and that they were just as surprised as you and I when these cuts were handed out. It sounds like there was a bit of an internal power struggle going on for NXT and with NXT. And it sounds like you have Nick Khan, Vince McMahon, Bruce Pritchard, all kind of on the same side here, and Triple H is being pushed out. Now, not sure how this is all going to play out. This is just the perceived notion of what is going on, especially with Triple H not being consulted on a lot of his talent getting released.
See, this is so good. I'm so glad you brought this up because it's so funny because it kind of plays a little bit into you and I and our personalities in that you're definitely all about the brand, the product, making sure everybody's happy and things like that. And I'm like, bro, are we making money? Where's my check? How much did I get? Okay. Do we do good quarter over quarter? And it's really interesting because of the fact that if a cut is made, you know it's being run by Vince McMahon. And our boy Kenny made an amazing point in the chat. He's like, Nick Khan's just being used as a scapegoat, as the guy that's being put out there as the front guy for the cuts being made. And bottom line, it's something where if you look at it, the WWE roster is bloated. You don't need 200 wrestlers. You don't, because when you mix and match, when you have this philosophy, and for me, unfortunately, the part of it is the byproduct is the product suffers. But by and large, this is where the biggest complaint everybody has with wrestling in that product is that it's basically plug and play. Show up, this guy does this role, this guy's the one that's going to be put. It's basically a remix of all the things that have been done before. Oh, yeah, Roman Reigns, the way in which he was created, being hated, similar to Cena. Now you with Keith
similar to The Rock. You can go as far as The Rock.
Keith Lee, obviously we talked about it when I was in Chicago. Having everybody online think that he's a bomb, and then now reintroduce him, getting some wins. Mm-hmm. So the formula is there. They just keep repeating it. And unfortunately, if you're a talent, if you end up on the wrong side, you get ignored, where Vince will just be like, okay, that's interesting. And then you'll hear nothing back for months. And you're like, I have a guarantee. There are wrestlers that make $500K a year that show up on 2 shows. And they're like, I can enjoy a fat check every day, every month, or I can actually get my name out there and do what I love. And that's the crazy part about $1 billion business that just has 3 television deals that are amazing, that you end up becoming corporate and it's not as authentic. And that's where AEW's come in, is that they've brought back the authentic feel of wrestling. But bottom line, if you're a dollars person, WWE is the company to pay attention to, because they signed $2 billion deals in the last 48 months. Yep. So, but unfortunately, when it goes corporate and whenever a company goes public, you don't just answer to DocNJock, to Adam Salgate, to Kenny Franzel. You don't answer to them. You answer to investors that are like, from overseas, and you got to get on these conference calls and be like, well,
but here's the thing.
Well, we expected $290 million in profit. We only got $244. Where are you going to get it from? You know what? Let's cut $3 million here. Let's cut $4 million here. Boom, boom, boom. We raised the profits and lowered the costs, and the investors go home and they're like, thank you very much for the dividend. Talk to you later.
But here's the thing. Some of those investors are those TV execs that are giving you these billion-dollar deals, and they're pissed about these cuts. Specifically with NXT, Bronson Reed. Now, a little bit of insight to kind of back up your point about Vince McMahon. So Bronson Reed's been trying out for main events, and he's had a couple of dark matches there. And after about 4 or 5, Vince just didn't see him getting called up to the main roster. So it sounds like Vince's theory behind all of it was like, well, if I'm not going to use you on the main roster, there's no need for you to be here. That's part of the reason why he was part of those casualties and was cut. Now, same thing with Karrion Kross. We talked about Karrion Kross getting brought up after being pushed as the legit badass in NXT to get called up and lose his first match to Jeff Hardy in such a comical fashion. We were kind of like, what the hell's going on here? But again, it's the way Vince views NXT. And a guy like Karrion Kross, he doesn't pay attention to what's going on with NXT. He doesn't care about it. He brings up a guy like Karrion Kross, watches a couple of his dark matches, and is like, all right, maybe we can do something here. Ends up debuting him in a loss, only to then have him come back and then go 50-50 with Keith Lee, and then get a win over Jeff Hardy. At this point, Karrion Kross, who was a complete badass in NXT, has been brought up to the main roster and kind of feels like he's the most mid-card of mid-card guys. And it's just kind of how Vince does things. And to your point, if Vince doesn't see it or Vince doesn't like it, you are basically backburnered if you're not cut. And I think that's kind of what you were saying, where you're going with that, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And unfortunately, this is what we're going to have. We're going to have debates regarding brand versus profit. But if you're upsetting Triple H, that's going to potentially cause a problem, because even though it's family, would you ever expect Triple H to just say, fuck it, I'm going to go somewhere else too? And just say, Tony Khan, hey, you know what? I'm upset. I want to run your company. You don't think Tony Khan would just say, fine, I'll give you but I don't think it'll ever happen, because
I don't think it'll happen either.
But you keep chipping away at shit like that. What does Triple H need? He doesn't have to do this.
He doesn't have to do this shit. Like, he can go do whatever he wants. Like, if he wanted to, he could go buy some intellectual property. Like, I think OVH or OVW is still around. If he really wanted to, he could go buy OVW. Right. And he could make it his own deal. Or
he could, get a development deal like on a streaming platform and just develop concepts, develop television, or behind the scenes as an executive. The man's talented, and he's gotten so much wealth in this situation. You shouldn't be pissing off two of your biggest executives. Mm-hmm. But bottom line, if you're Triple H, bite the bullet, create new stars, and keep the machine rolling. Keep those $5 million a year checks in your pocket. Just don't worry about it, because here's the thing. Eventually, and I really believe this in corporate structure, in my work with CEOs, bottom line, at certain points, people get pissed off at the nature of business, because business, the first sentence in Business 101 is, bottom line profit. How much did we make? There's no feelings. There's no interest in Bronson Reed, no interest in Triple H. It's, if we cut Bronson Reed, how much do we save? $200K? Worth it. Bye. That's it. Bottom line, people have to understand that the bottom line in business is those numbers. And for Vince and for Khan and for Bruce, they're looking at them and they want them to be in their favor. And that's the bottom line of business, and we have to accept it.
Well, bottom line is, huge merch seller is John Cena, also Roman Reigns. And they both appear on Smackdown. And I think Smackdown is the best WWE property that we currently have. I think the ratings show it, as Monday Night Raw is a complete dumpster fire. Ratings have slipped to all-time lows. NXT feels like it is a show in transition between what its identity used to be and what it may be in the future. Nobody's really sure what's going on with NXT, as we just kind of highlighted and talked about. But SmackDown over the last couple of weeks has really felt like the more consistent brand and has given us some of the more interesting storylines. Now, I'm not going to say it's not without its warts. There are parts of this show that are absolutely brutal and extremely boring and make zero sense. A prime example is this week's episode, where you had Sasha Banks come down for her contract signing with Bianca Belair. She brings out Carmella and Zelina Vega. Mind you, last week they were wrestling each other and they were beating each other up, only to have them come out this week and back Sasha Banks. It makes no sense. It's just bad. It's bad creative. However, you do have some really good things going for it. And you've got a guy, like I said, John Cena, who's a huge merch pusher. And I don't care what you say. John Cena comes out, you still get hyped. I get pumped every time I see John Cena. I was watching SmackDown in bed last night because it started at 11:35, 11:40, and I was basically dancing around in bed when John Cena's music popped, because I love John Cena. Roman Reigns, this is the best Roman Reigns has ever been. Like, Roman Reigns, this is the most authentic I think he's ever felt. And I think they've given him some creativity and they've given him some leeway where he doesn't have to read verbatim whatever it is that they write. They're basically giving him the John Cena treatment, which I think is fantastic. And because of that, I think what you get is you get a better product on SmackDown. Now, what we had on SmackDown to kick the show off was we had John Cena come out, cut a bit of a promo. Roman Reigns interrupts, comes out, and they have this weird little stare down. They kind of go back and forth. And then John Cena goes into trying to bury Roman Reigns. Now, this promo was fire. There was a lot of heat here. There was a lot of things that John Cena said. I don't think Roman Reigns necessarily held his own in this. I think Roman Reigns, I don't know what the situation was here. I felt like Roman Reigns kind of backed down a little bit in this promo segment. But John Cena comes out and lays into Roman Reigns and basically talks about how he's been pushed for 10 years, and how he hasn't really been able to live up to all of his billing over the course of this 10 years. And I feel like this is a bit of like old hat here. Like, John Cena is usually great and gives you really, really good stuff, especially when he cuts a promo. To me, this promo felt like this was something from 7 years ago, 5 years ago, 8 years ago, 9 years ago. Right now, I think Roman Reigns, and you tell me if I'm wrong, I think Roman Reigns right now, this is the best he's ever been. And like I said, I feel like this is his most authentic self. I feel like this version of Roman Reigns is very similar to the guy that he can be on the outside of the wrestling ring. I'm not saying he's like this all the time. He's not arrogant. He's not a dick, if you will. But I'm saying he can be if you push him. And I feel like he taps into this and he gives you a very real version of what he is or what he can be on the outside of the ring. And for John Cena to kind of come in and try to bury him, and I'm going to use the word bury here because the way this promo was done over the course of, I think it was about 20 minutes, maybe 25 minutes, John Cena really just kind of pulled at a lot of old things, and it just didn't feel like it fit for me. And I feel like this promo was the best part of this entire episode of Smackdown, so much so that it ended up putting me to sleep. The show ended up putting me to sleep not very shortly after this. I had to get up and watch the episode this morning. I don't know. Am I a little bit off base here?
Well, because so many don't do it that way, that realism feel always catches a lot of people. But you're right. I think in terms of comparing it, Roman Reigns against Roman Reigns and John Cena, knowing what they are capable of, to see Roman Reigns kind of pull back a little bit and not go all the way with it is a little bit disappointing. But it's nice to see two of the top-end guys go at it and bring a little bit of that realism to it. And that's all they're trying to do is draw attention to the feud. I love the Nikki Bella references, the Dean Ambrose references, and things like that. But what could have been said that might have made you feel Roman Reigns held his own?
For me, it could have been him, I don't know, maybe going in a little bit deeper. So, like, he goes back to the missionary thing again. And again, like, we did the whole missionary line, 3 weeks ago? So to go back to that after calling John Cena out about making D jokes, I don't know. It just didn't fit for me. And then for him to cut in on with Nikki Bella, I did like that. And I get that the missionary thing was kind of the setup for that. But I don't know. I just felt like you could have went about it a little bit differently. I think that if you're Roman Reigns, your promo could have been more along the lines of, because John Cena admitted, he's like, Roman Reigns is going to kick my ass. He's going to work me over. But John Cena's whole thing was, all I have to do is survive and get a 1, 2, 3 on you. You could have made some reference about how he's going to end up beating him down so bad that he won't be able to answer the bell. You could have spun it a few different ways. I felt like John Cena really gave him some meat, and all he had to do was chew through it, and he could have came up with a much better promo. Instead, you had John Cena dominate this promo for, I would feel, 15 of the 20 minutes. Like 75% of this promo was all John Cena, and Absolutely. It was all him counting numbers and throwing stuff out there. Number 17 for his championships, 1, 2, 3 for the pin. You're going to be a trivia answer. Like, it was, John Cena's was okay. I just felt like he could have been better, and I felt like Roman Reigns should, I don't know, like, you're the head of the table. You're the lead dog. Smackdown is your show. I felt like he could have came a little bit more correct, and it kind of let me down. Is there anything that you liked on SmackDown or that you really took away that you're like, all right, this is cool. This is getting me pumped up. We're roughly, at the time when the show aired, it was 8 days away. Now we're 7 days away from SummerSlam. As I informed you, it's going to be on a Saturday instead of a Sunday. Anything from SmackDown that you're kind of like, all right, I'm intrigued by this.
I even though the booking didn't make sense, I am intrigued by Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair. Yeah. Two of the best.
I feel like the women's division on SmackDown is so damn good.
Yes, two of the best. I think Bianca is holding her own and quickly has become the it girl and the it performer on SmackDown. And then Sasha Banks, oh my gosh, the anticipation of the match that they could have is really intriguing and really positive and something I'm excited to see. And that's what caught my attention was the promo and the feud now building between Bianca Belair, the EST, kind of like me, of DSP, and just handling her business, and Sasha Banks, the up-and-comer, the veteran, now trying to come from behind on a chase. So it's going to be great. I think that, and two, I'm not going to lie, to be a little bit primitive here, a nastier, angry Sasha Banks does something for me. I like it.
All of a sudden, he's hard.
Yeah, baby.
and the hubris never ceases to amaze me. Why don't you give me your review of Impact this week? A lot of stuff going on with Impact and AEW. We're going to get to that here shortly when we start talking about AEW, but there's a ton going on with Impact. So fill us in.
Oh, well, let's back up for a second. It just doesn't it ring true? Maybe Adam, when he hears this, Adam Salget, a great friend of the podcast, always reviewing us. I love it. Maybe he'll let me know if it rings true or is it just too much hubris. I like it. The EST of DSP, baby. I'm just going to walk around. Everyone's going to just be like, what the hell is this guy talking about? When I show up to all these events, I'll be like, look, I'm going to do this gimmick infringement. I don't care. I'm the EST of DSP. Handle my business, baby. Come at me. Just start doing a bunch of wrestling gimmicks all over the place. Kind of like, that one character back in the day that just copied, Ric Flair, copied all the gimmicks. Oh man, that's funny as shit.
I think you're talking about Jay Lethal. And Jay Lethal.
Yes.
Came out. It started wooing Ric Flair, and Ric Flair started wooing him back.
Yeah, exactly. Jay Lethal, baby. So, oh man, good stuff. I like it. Sometimes the things that just come into your head. We'll see how this goes going forward. Impact was good because you had something that I always like, which is who's going to be the number one contender to potentially fight the likes of Kenny Omega. A championship opportunity could be earned. And there was a number one contender battle royal with a lot of good names. And when you look at it here to fast forward to the main event, I was shocked at the winner. I was like, wait a minute. Brian Myers is the winner here? He's going to get an opportunity to have a championship opportunity. He outlasts 19 other competitors in a great battle royal. It was really, really good, and it was really highlighted by the fact that it was kind of a shocking win. I thought he would maybe be the fifth or sixth option in this matchup, and he gets the win. So that was sweet. Early on, you had some good X Division matches with Josh Alexander taking on Daivari. And on a side note, Daivari kind of got one of his moves kind of made fun of by someone from behind the scenes, a talent guy at WWE, and kind of talking about his finisher with the magic carpet. And so you always get a chance to see that, and you're like, oh, okay. You know what? Maybe Daivari is going to get a little bit of rub from some criticism. So that was really cool. The women were okay. It was nothing too special. I really liked the Finn Juice taking on Jay White and Chris Bay. I thought it was a great continuation of the rivalry with Finn Juice defeating White and Bay via disqualification. Matt Cardona took on John Skyler. I thought, okay, Skyler's new. Skyler's somebody that's been around and has done some things behind the scenes, now getting a chance, but he gets the W. I was like, wow, Skyler's a respected indie worker who's been on WWE and All Elite. He comes in and gets the W. Maybe it's not going to be a big deal for the former Zack Ryder to take the loss, but I think it's an opportunity there to put somebody over, and it was a great opportunity. Now, to get to the Battle Royal, the participants were Eddie Edwards, Brian Myers, Sam Beal, Sami Callihan, Moose, Ace Austin, Madman Fulton, Falaba, Chris Sabin, No Way, William Morrissey, who I thought was going to win, Rhino, Diener, Rich Swann, Willie Mack, Suicide, Johnny Swinger, Hernandez, and Petey Williams all had the opportunity. And I thought maybe it could have been Moose or Callahan, maybe Morrissey, but they give it to Brian Myers. Fun Battle Royal, makes it one of the better shows over the last 4 weeks. A- for Impact. Start watching, guys. It's heating up.
Impact's getting really, really good. And like you said, it's definitely picking up. I think the partnership with AEW has really helped both brands. It gives you more selection of wrestlers to choose from, gives you more interesting storylines to do. On AEW this week, you've seen the, I think it was the tag belts were highlighted for Impact on AEW. So you now are getting, more of a crossover between the two. And I think that's fantastic. I think that's great for both brands. Now, for me, AEW this week felt, again, like it was building towards something. Like it was building towards another show. Not so much a pay-per-view in this case like you have with WWE. It was building towards Friday's kickoff of Rampage, their very first episode. And it just kind of, I don't know, it felt almost like they didn't want to give you too much because they really wanted to force you to tune in to what took place on Rampage. And I think what you got on Rampage, the way they kicked it off was fantastic. It was a hot 20 minutes between Christian Cage, Kenny Omega. Christian Cage ends up defeating Kenny Omega for the Impact World Championships. Now, I think this is awesome. I think what they're doing here by crossing over these two brands and highlighting each other's belts on each brand is really great for one. I think it benefits Impact a ton because obviously AEW is the hottest thing in wrestling right now. So it's going to draw eyes to Impact. I think what you do now is you take an established guy like Christian Cage, who was formerly in Impact. He used to be an Impact guy when it was TNA. He now has the Impact Championship belt back. Kenny Omega loses for the first time in over 2 years in an AEW ring. I think this is a really nice setup. I thought this was really well done. I thought it was a fantastic match. Did you not love this match? And did you not love the way that this kind of came right out the gate and gave you just hot fire, especially coming off of what was a Dynamite that really felt underrated. Like Wednesday night's Dynamite felt like it was just kind of there.
Now, sometimes when you get a spoiler, you get disappointed. Because I had not yet to see the show, I got the news in our group chat. But sometimes there's an advantage to that because then you look for things outside of the result. And sometimes when you look at a match already knowing the result, you can start looking at the psychology, start looking at the chemistry. I was pleasantly surprised at how well Christian Cage and Kenny Omega looked, and I was impressed with the match. So knowing the result in this instance, in this opportunity, kind of let me look at other things other than, oh my gosh, what happens when a pin is applied, or how is this looking? I got to look at how the match was told, how the storyline put together, who was kind of leading the charge there. So for me, knowing what happened made the match a little bit more enjoyable. I thought, there was a little bit, which I was surprised, a little bit of critique saying that Christian Cage getting this opportunity is too soon, that this is another silly way of doing this. But to have him get the W, I think is a perfect blend, knowing that the man has spent time there. So it made perfect sense after knowing what happened.
Yeah, I thought it was the right move. I thought it was good. And I think what you're seeing now is you have Kenny Omega, who's been so high on the horse for so long. And I think this is the time now where he maybe takes a little bit of a step back. This sets up for something interesting because Kenny Omega and Christian Cage are now going to challenge each other at, I think it's All Out here in September. So basically over, Labor Day weekend, AEW runs their annual pay-per-view. And at that pay-per-view, you will have Christian Cage challenging Kenny Omega for the AEW championship. And it'll be interesting if Christian Cage comes away with that belt. Now, originally, both you and I thought that was going to be Hangman Page, and it was going to be Hangman Page's time to take the belt off of Kenny Omega. Again, go back to that long-term storytelling. The whole thing with Hangman Page and Kenny Omega, that goes back almost 2.5 years. You could probably go back even further. You could go back to when AEW was first established and Hangman Page challenged Chris Jericho for the championship, only to lose to Chris Jericho, who became the very first AEW champion. After that, Hangman Page kind of spun around a little bit, ended up forming a tag team with Kenny Omega, only to have these two kind of start pairing off and squaring off with each other. And it really felt like we were building towards this for this upcoming pay-per-view for AEW. Only at the last second for AEW to pull a little bit of a switcheroo on us. Insert Christian Cage. Now, I guess this is the background story, and this is what I found out. Hangman Page's wife is pregnant. She's getting ready to give birth to their first child. So the original plan was for Hangman Page to always take some time away from television before the birth of their kid and then for the birth of their kid. So AEW basically fed us a whole bunch of I guess breadcrumbs to lead us to nowhere, because it was never intended for Hangman Page to take on Kenny Omega. What we're going to get instead is Christian Cage taking on Kenny Omega. I thought that was really interesting. I thought it was really slick once you kind of take a step back and you know what's going on. Because 2-3 weeks ago, we were all aboard. It's Hangman's time. It's Hangman's time. Only for them to low-key slip in and sub in Christian Cage. What do you think about AEW doing that as far as a booking?
Hey, if that's the plan, then I'm all for it. I think Christian Cage is believable, even though some people may think it's too soon, or, you know, what does it mean to have an ex-WWE guy come in and already get the chance? But he's a main event guy. You don't bring in Christian Cage.
Is he really an ex-WWE guy at this point? I mean, I know WWE was the last place he worked, but he hasn't wrestled for them in freaking years.
Yeah, semantically, but that's where he got over. And I think that's where you qualify it, is anybody that gets over and have their biggest success in WWE. It wasn't at Impact. Everything happens where he got over. Christian and Edge, the Christian and Edge show, all the extra stuff that they did. And then when the deals happened, he started showing up and commentating. So, of course, that's where he's from. So, as opposed to looking at it saying, okay, it's a homegrown guy and a guy that was started off as an AEW guy. But, I mean, hell, it's Christian Cage. You put him in there, you make some money. And remember, guys, there are fans that are casual, not as hardcore as Adam and I. So what that means is, if you're looking to a casual fan and they go, oh, Christian Cage, was that the guy at WWE? Oh, let me take a look. And you draw in the viewer, similar to Chris Jericho, similar to Big Show. When you start picking out, look, AEW knows they have their 1.5 million fans that are going to watch. Now they got to start pinching away 50,000 here, 50,000 here, start drawing the casual fan, somebody that knew WWE and was hardcore or was someone that just kind of paid attention to the names, and they start drawing them in. So to have this matchup, I think draws and does a good job. So all in all, to all the haters, stay quiet. This will be a good match. This will be a fun feud for however long it lasts. And to Hangman Page, you got to remember, while it's great for your family, not great for getting over, because you were right there on the precipice of breaking through. Any time off is a bad sign, even though it's for good reasons. In wrestling, out of sight, out of mind.
Before we get to news and notes, I do want to run this by you, and I do want to ask you this question. So this is something else that I noticed on Rampage. Rampage, they went with a 4-man booth. And for me, it felt like it was a little disjointed. It felt like there was one too many voices in that booth.
Wow. I had that in my notes. I said, I don't like 4. I don't like 4. That was my note.
Yeah.
I don't like 3 in general, because you start noticing that it's so hard to time even when it's perfect. When there's a big move, it felt like there was always 2 people trying to hop in to get their talk in. So that's why when you and I first started podcasting and we considered maybe third voice, other voice, female voice, other kind of things, I said, cuz I'm not a fan of 3 on a show, because in radio shows or in anything in general, 3 people is a lot. 4 was too much, and I put thumbs down.
Yeah, I did not like maybe they'll figure it out. Again, first episode, but initially I was not a fan. It felt like you said, they were just kind of stepping over each other's lines. Nobody was really sure when to talk. I don't really think, and look, I like Mark Henry, and I think Mark Henry does a great job on Busted Open. Mark Henry in this position where he's trying to commentate and he's trying to backstage host interviews, it doesn't work for me. His voice in that role doesn't necessarily project well. I think him in the ring cutting a promo is great, but when he's doing it in the backstage, you can tell like he's almost thinking too much and it's not natural. I don't know if subbing Mark Henry out is the move to make, but he was the one who I felt like was probably the most inexperienced, or at least lacking the most in this role. And I do not like the 4-man booth, at least currently as it is. And maybe, like I said, maybe it'll change. Maybe it won't. I'm glad we're on the same page with that, though.
Hey, if they want to go, let's just go all out. 6-man booth with all these guys and DocNJock's featured guests, you know? I mean, hell, why not? Let's just have a round table. You know how they do in football, just a big round table with 6 people, and hell, we'll show up there and just be like, all right, let's get this action underway. Where's Ric Flair? Is he coming out here? Oh wait, is the Hulkster coming out here? All right, cuz hit me at this week's professional wrestling news and notes.
So we've talked quite a bit about a lot of different releases that are going on with WWE. So about 2 weeks ago, Bray Wyatt was surprisingly released from WWE. That was followed by the 16-time world champion Ric Flair asking for his release from WWE that following Monday. Now, it sounds like Flair's release was more due to some issues that he was having with the way Charlotte was being booked, and basically said, if you're not going to use me and you're not going to do things the right way, I want out. He has since come out and said that there's no animosity between the two. He just asked for his release and was given it. Now, Bray Wyatt's release has, again, I mentioned earlier, some TV execs up in arms. It's being reported that there was a lot of frustration from the networks that are working with WWE regarding Wyatt's release. WWE has a $1 billion TV deal with Raw and Smackdown and NBC Universal and Fox respectively, like the doc has mentioned earlier. So Wyatt's release is being reported as being really disappointing and a little scary that top stars are being let go. Now, on the heels of all of that, you had NXT release 10 wrestlers, including Leon Ruff, who was a former North American champion, and Bronson Reed, who was a former North American champion. Let both of them go. And those were two big name guys, two big stars in NXT. It's interesting that all of that took place, like I said, back to back to back to back, only to have Adam Cole's contract expire without WWE realizing it. Now, Adam Cole has basically been working with no contract, and Adam Cole has said that he will work with WWE up until next weekend, up until Sunday after NXT TakeOver. Now, WWE is working to re-sign Adam Cole. Not really sure what they're going to do as far as Adam Cole and his contract. Adam Cole has had conversations with Vince McMahon personally, ended up attending Monday Night Raw, I believe it was last week, so they could talk about his contract. Now, with all the things changing with NXT, the thought process is NXT is going to become more of a big guy wrestling program, a big guy wrestling show, more in line with what Vince likes for his wrestlers, for his superstars. Remember, Vince likes big guys who are pretty thick, cut up, muscular. So it's going to basically be if you are 6 foot or taller and you're jacked, then you're going to have a spot in NXT so that way you can get called up to the main roster. Adam Cole is none of those. Adam Cole actually looks a little soft and a little doughy. Not saying that he's not in good shape, just saying that he's not ripped like Finn Balor is. Adam Cole is also nowhere close to being 6 foot tall. So it leads you to believe that not really sure where Adam Cole is going to end up in the NXT landscape. And it might not even be in the NXT landscape. He might just go right to the main roster. It'll be interesting to see kind of what ends up happening to Adam Cole as these contract negotiations move on. Now, Adam Cole has been very open about working in NXT, says that he loves working with Triple H and loves working with Shawn Michaels. Those were two guys that he's modeled his career after, and that he's basically those are his idols from when he was a kid. So it sounds like he wants to stay in NXT, but not sure if that's going to be the best move for him going forward. Now, Keith Lee recently opened up and posted a video on his YouTube channel where he discussed his tumultuous 5-month battle with COVID and the results of what ensued after. Lee said that he came down with COVID only to fight it off. After fighting it off, he ended up dealing with some inflammation of the heart, and this essentially confined him to his bed. He was stuck there for 5 months. He was getting prepared to have surgery to help remove some of the inflammation in his heart when things seemed to self-regulate, and his heart inflammation went away. So survives COVID, survives heart inflammation, only to come back and get squashed by Bobby Lashley, Karrion Kross, then gets a win over Karrion Kross. It's been an absolute crazy 5 to 6 month journey for Keith Lee. Keith Lee is in some good health right now, though. If you need to check that video out again, check out his YouTube channel. You can get the whole lowdown there. A few weeks ago, he let us know that he was going to tell his side of the story. That's his side of the story. Now, we've got some news on CM Punk for you. and it sounds like it's pretty good. So per some people with intimate knowledge, it's like CM Punk never left wrestling. Sounds like CM Punk has been working in the ring, trying to work some of the ring rust off, and it's being debated by the people who have watched him wrestle whether or not he was basically working out at home or if he's been working out privately and nobody knows, because he looks so damn good. He looks so much healthier, and he looks like he's in incredible shape, the best shape of his life, basically before the end of his WWE career. If you remember, when he was leaving WWE, he was sick, he was beat up, he was concussed, he had a lot of things going on, and he was still giving you really good matches, but it looks like he is he's heads and tails in the greatest shape of his life. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with CM Punk. We're both anticipating CM Punk showing up at the Chicago Rampage edition, which I believe will be in about 2 weeks. So we'll have to check that out. Now, All Elite Wrestling is also reportedly suspended Matt Caster for 2 months without pay. This is off the backs of last week's controversy where Caster, in a pre-match rap, included references to Simone Biles' mental health. This, again, was on AEW Dark. Simone Biles' mental health, the Duke Lacrosse rape allegations, fake COVID-19 PCR tests, and Julia Hart's vagina. Now, this was edited out after many fans took issues with it online. A week later, AEW announced that the acclaimed Caster and Anthony Bowens would have a match on last night's episode of Dark, but then they quickly took that down and announced that the match was pulled from the show. Tony Khan called Caster's rap terrible, and as a result of it not being edited out of the show before it aired, he said he will now be taking over editing the Elevation in Dark from now on, which he didn't sound very happy about. What it sounds like is both Elevation and Dark are kind of two sub-properties of AEW where Tony Khan's kind of hands-off-ish, and whatever kind of happens. And then if Tony Khan has to get involved, that's when he gets involved. It sounds like he now has to get involved, and he's not very pleased about it. And that's going to do it for this week's lengthy news and notes segment.
Make sure you follow Adam on Twitter at AdamRSTROZ. Follow the network at Detroit Podcast, a great network dedicated to Detroit sports. We broadcast darn near every single day. Anywhere that you find and listen to your favorite podcast, all you got to do is go there, type in Detroit Sports Podcast. We're growing subscribers. Even to this day, 7 years later, people come up to me and say, oh, you do a podcast. Where's it at? Detroit Sports Podcast. They can find it within seconds. And then, of course, I'm like, leave us a 5-star review after you love DocNJock, which airs on Thursday. And make sure you follow Adam and his other podcast, The Practice Squad. Real interesting stuff there as Adam tries to help Little B navigate through this tough world of life. And you're doing a good job. You're helping him get there, because he kind of veers off the wayward path a little bit with whatever he's got going on. And so I always enjoy checking in, as you're kind of like his therapist, and you're doing a good job in an entertaining way. The Practice Squad each and every Friday. Thanks, cuz.